All right, MSDOSX, all 6 or 7 of you. Um, so today I have a actually very short lecture about two really small frameworks, one called Message UI and then the Twitter frameworks that are available on iOS as of iOS 5. So we'll start with Message UI, which is a framework that one of the things it provides is basically all it provides are these very simple standard composition interfaces for writing emails and for writing SMS messages, and it allows you to embed these in your application so that the user isn't forced to leave the application to go to mail or go to messages to write a message. You can actually embed those right in your application. Mail I found is really useful if you want to have, for example, bug submission directly from your app. It's great to have just be able to you can populate a lot of the fields of that email automatically, and then just have them fill in some details about what their bug was, and then send off a bug report to you, which is that's really helpful. Okay, so we'll talk first about mail composition. Like I said, this framework is very small. There are 2 classes and 2 delegates. That's the entire framework. So there is one class that is MF Mail Compose View Controller. Yes, these are all extremely verbose. But this is gives you a view controller for writing mail. Typically, you'll present this in a modal fashion, meaning usually it'll slide up from the bottom as a modal view controller. But again, it's just a view controller, so you can present it however you want. You can push it on. You can do anything you want with it, really. The typical use case is for it to pop up modally, then you write the email, it goes away, then they go back to what they were doing. So the first thing you want to check is, can I send email? And there's a really simple class method on the mail controller, can send mail, that basically says, okay, it returns yes if the device is configured with an email account. And if it doesn't have an email account, then it will return no. And if this returns no, then don't try to display the mail controller. It will probably crash. So once we allocate and initialize a mail compose view controller, we can customize a lot of the fields inside of that. So we can set the subject line, we can set the 2 recipients, and those are just, I think, strings containing email addresses. We can set CC, VCC recipients. We can set the body of the message to be just a string of plain text or a string of HTML. And we can attach data to this, so this includes images and any other attachment. Yeah?
Wait, going back to the send mail, like what states, like, it's like we're running a game, or what kind of criteria does it know that you can send?
Basically, if the user has configured a mail account on their device, they can send mail.
So
It doesn't check for things like network connectivity or any of that. It just says if there's an account that's set up, then yes. Otherwise, no.
This capability.
Yeah.
All right.
And the nice thing is, if you have an account set up, but maybe you're not connected to the internet, it will just throw that image, when you hit send, it will throw it into your outbox, discover, oh, hey, I can't send because I have no internet, and then Mail will automatically handle that. As soon as you regain network access, it'll try to resend it. So it does everything pretty nicely. You just need to know. And if the user has more than one email account associated with a device, the default sending address is whatever they've selected as their default account. But they can change that, of course, if they want to send from a different account. So like I said, you can customize all these mail fields. They can, of course, override them after the fact if they decide they don't like those. But this is really nice for auto-populating things, so that way your user can really just get straight to writing their email or deciding who to send it to, and not have to worry about filling in all the details of that email. So that you can set all these, and then show them the mail view controller, let them write their email, and then they'll hit either cancel if they want to cancel, or they'll hit send, and then you'll get a notification saying it got sent. So there is the class that goes with the compose view controller is compose view controller delegate, which has exactly one method in it, which is compose controller did finish with result or error. So there are several different result codes. It could either the user hit the cancel button, they hit the send button and it failed to send, which means it got sent. It will get dumped into their outbox. They hit the sent button and it successfully sent, or they hit the cancel button and they chose to save it rather than delete the draft. So you can handle that response however you want to in your application. And yeah, so this will get called. Generally, what you do inside of here is you'll dismiss that view controller or in some way, and then go back to what they were doing before. Any questions about the mail controller? Okay, SMS is going to be pretty much the same. There is the message compose view controller rather than the mail view controller. Again, it's typically presented modally. This is only for sending SMS messages. Unfortunately, there's no API for sending MMS. So if you want to attach images or anything to your text message, there's no API for that. So they'd have to exit to messages to do that. But this is if you want to be able to send a text from within your app. This is a nice way to do that. So, like with mail, we can ask, is it possible to send mail, send a text, which basically means, do I have a phone number, or in the case since I was 5, do I have an iMessage account? And so again, it just checks if the device is configured for it. It doesn't check if it's actually going to succeed. Again, if this returns no, don't try to show the controller. It will probably crash. So there are two things you can customize about an SMS message: the body and the recipients, which is a string of phone numbers. And so you can set these, again, giving them some default values. They can change them if they want, and then they'll hit send or cancel or whatever. And of course, finally, there's a delegate with one protocol in it that is did finish with result. And again, there's 3 response codes. Either they canceled, it sent, or it failed to send. And you can handle that response accordingly. Pretty easy, right? Any questions? Okay, so now we'll talk about the Twitter framework, which is even smaller. It has 2 classes in it. And that's it. So there are 2 nice things that the Twitter framework enables you. One is a really nice abstract framework for creating and sending requests to the Twitter API. And then also the tweet sheet, which is this really pretty neat looking composing way for you to compose Twitter tweets and send them off to your account. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about these really super detailed, but you can look at the API for that. But there's a class TW request that you use to make Twitter requests. It's really easy to use. It's basically a wrapper for the underlying HTTP requests, all the URL delegate, that kind of stuff. And it handles authentication pretty nicely for you. So, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. The documentation explains, I think, fairly well how to use it. So this is used for making simple requests to their API service and getting back responses, that kind of thing. And then there is another view controller, the tweet compose view controller, for writing and sending tweets. Once again, this is usually presented modally, but it doesn't have to be. Again, it's just a view controller that you can present. Again, can I tweet? Is there at least one Twitter account set up with this device? If there is, it returns yes. Otherwise, it returns no. Again, if it returns no, don't try to present the controller. It will probably crash. So what can you customize in a tweet? You can set the initial text. You can attach images and URLs. The interesting thing here is that notice that these actually return yes or no. Because tweets have a limited number of characters, you can possibly try to attach more characters than you have available, and in that case it will return no, saying there isn't enough room for this. One slightly odd thing about the tweet sheet, unlike the others, is once the user sees the tweet sheet, once it's been put on screen, none of these will work. These will always fail. I'm not exactly sure why they did it that way, but so the idea is you do any customization you need, show it to the user, and then they either write the tweet or send it or cancel it. You can't do any replacement of that text or images or data under the hood from them. It all has to be once it's loaded and on screen, then you can't touch it anymore. Okay, so the tweet sheet, unlike all of the others, doesn't have a delegate for knowing when you're done. It since it's released with iOS 5 and therefore we have blocks, they thought, let's use a completion handler for this. So there is a property on the tweet sheet controller that is completion handler, and it takes a block that it will call when it's done. So very much like that delegate method, it's just this method that takes in a result code. So you can imagine that there's actually just 2 for the tweet sheet. There's either it's got sent or they hit cancel. So the block all it does is it's a block that doesn't return anything and takes in this very long type def TW tweet compose view controller result. And so you just give it that block, and then it will call that block whenever it's done. So the common thing to put inside that block again is to dismiss the controller. Okay, so before I have a quick, really silly demo app that I made with all three of those. Unfortunately, I can only demo one of them because the simulator doesn't have messages or Twitter. But I'll post it up there, and you guys can put it on your devices and play around with these. Oh god, this is small. Okay, simple little UI. It's got 3 buttons. I can either make an email sheet come up, an SMS sheet come up, or a tweet sheet come up. They all get called into this one button receiver method. So I'm going to skip that for just a second. So I just break up into 3 cases based on what the text of the label is. If it's mail, then I make a mail compose controller. I guess I can talk about. So it's often this. I just thought just to be able to attach some image to some of these things, I took a screen capture. So if you guys want some really short code for how to take a capture of the screen and save it into an image, that's some code for it. Basically, what you do is you make a graphics context. That's the size of the window. Then you tell the Windows layer to render into that context. Note that because I'm using layers, I have to import quartz core. And then basically you just create a UI image from that context, and then you can retain it so that way it doesn't go away, and then close the context. Really simple, 5 lines to capture the screen. There used to be a really hacky way to do it that was probably using some private APIs that was really ugly, and now there's this nice, clean way to do it. So anyway, I'll have an image of what the screen looks like. So if I want to attach an image to my email, I can. So emails are kind of funny. You have to attach an NS data. So there's a convenience method, UI image ping representation, that takes in an image and gives you back the data in ping format. So then I say it's an image of type ping, and I can give that attachment a file name. The reason you need the file name for the emails is so that it can tell attachments apart. If you have 2 with the same name, it won't let you attach them both. So that way, whoever receives it can see that you have multiple different files that you've attached. And then I've assigned the delegate as myself, so that way I can know when the sheet is done, and I present it modally. And the SMS thing is similar, except that I can't attach images to it. So really, I just create one, set it myself as a delegate, and present it. Or if it's the tweet sheet, I create one, and then I can just directly add the image, and so that will appear with a little paperclip on the tweet sheet. And then I set a completion handler that, again, it takes in the result and completely ignores it, and all it does is it dismisses the view controller. And then I present that controller. Okay, so then these are the 2 handler methods for the mail and message controller, and you can see all they do is they dismiss the controller. Pretty simple. Oh, not my device. How about the simulator? Oh, you're going to do this, are you? Well, maybe I won't show you this demo. I've been having this bug with this app where it won't attach to it, but it'll attach to the device just fine. Well, that's unfortunate. Here, I think I still have it on my device. I can just pass it around if you guys want to take a look at it. It's trying to attach the debugger to it, I think. And there's some. I think that there's something that got borked in the project files that it's like the name that the debugger thinks it's using is different than the name it's actually using, so it can't actually attach to it correctly. I'm not quite sure what's happened. I mean, I've quit Xcode several times and cleared the derived data and all that good stuff, so I don't quite know why it can't attach to it. But. Is it still there? Oh, okay. Well, just it that's funny. It installed it, but just couldn't attach the debugger to it. Okay, so if I want to present an email, so you can see there's my nice little screen cap that got attached. So it usually the default position for attachments is below the message body and above the signature. I didn't really populate anything, but you know, I can hopefully tap in here. And if you have contacts, it can scan into your contacts. as far as I know, this is pretty much the exact same view controller that Mail actually uses. And then it cancels, and I can choose to save or delete the draft. I'm going to say delete. And I would show you these ones, but they're going to crash. So, because surprise, you can't send SMS messages from the simulator. Okay, so any questions about those two frameworks? I've posted links to the reference documents for them. They're, like I said, they're pretty small frameworks. They just have a couple of classes in them. I found the Mail one super useful for being able to do bug submission. Just being able to auto-populate the to field as my bug submit address, and throwing in a screen capture with the bug submit is really useful. Cool.